Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigations Council presents Epic Voyages. Come join us as we enter and experience the great mysteries of the world with tonight's host, Lynn, Chilson.
Good evening. This is Lynn Chilson, and we are on the Inception Radio Network, and this is the Extraordinary Phenomena Investigative Council radio program tonight about shamanism, technology that we don't understand yet, and just stories from the jungle, I guess. My guest tonight is Peter Gorman. Peter is, I guess, in the vein of complete and total clarity here. He is a good friend of mine, but he is also a world-renowned author and investigator. He also is an adventurer and a chef in his own right. Also, Peter is a shaman, and I don't want to put too much pressure on him tonight. Peter is also joined with his daughter, Madalena. Madalena has been watching her father and also the people that her father knows for most of the years of her life. And how old are you?
14.
14 years. So I think this is going to be kind of fun. I gave up linear thinking a long time ago. So, folks, I want you to know if you think we've strayed too far off of what we're trying to do here, you can call in or send us a note. And I want to tell you right now that that call-in number is 888-919-2355. But I hope we will be entertaining, and perhaps we might even teach you something tonight. Peter, first of all, what I want to do is welcome you, and I'm so glad you took some time out of your schedule to be with us.
Thanks very much for having me here. I appreciate it, and I look forward to the chance of sharing some opinions and some stories.
Well, I think the listeners are going to enjoy this. To get this thing started, back in 1961, and there are people in the room here who don't even remember 1961, Arthur C. Clarke wrote in Profiles of the Future, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." And I think we've proven that. I mean, the fact that you're listening on the internet tonight, folks, probably would have been magic back in 1961, and cell phones and television and radio and all those things would be indistinguishable from magic. However, there is a very ancient and old technology which might be known as shamanism, which predates all of those things, and we still call that magic. But I think Peter will agree that maybe it's just technology we don't understand yet. But the first thing I want to do tonight, Peter, is get you to tell us in your definition of shamanism or curanderos or whatever. Let's set the stage for what we're talking about tonight.
In my experience, and everyone, please pardon me because I'm suffering a bit of a flu and so my voice is kind of thick and heavy. In my experience, I would say that curanderos are healers, and shamanism involves healing of humans through a connection, a very vibrant, very alive connection with the other animate objects in this world, from the spirits of trees, the energy, the spirit of trees, a connection with the spirit of anything from the blood that runs within humans to the beautiful light energy that runs from the sun and illuminates the universe, to the deep black energy, not negative black magic, but the black magic energy that holds everything together, whether it's a universe, the sun, the moon, or an atom, or the neutrons within an atom, so that those things can be seen as things, so that we can actually act and interact with them. And to me, a shaman is someone who can access those other levels of reality, to see beneath the surface of the table, to see where the table came from, what the tree was, what the tree thought, where that tree grew. And to be able to understand that allows that shaman to be able to affect changes in our world.
And so when you talk about things that maybe science would understand, like vibrational energy, or that quantum level, or understanding trees, or spirits. We obviously hear people talk about communicating with spirits or finding negative energies, and that's how a shaman cures people. Well, exactly in your experience, what kinds of things have you seen them use? Is there a receptor site in the brain that a shaman is able to touch into that allows them to understand these sciences, these energies, those kinds of things? A lot of people talk about shamans using drugs. Do they use drugs? Is that how you would describe the way they touch these vibrational energies, Peter?
In my world, the shaman that I've known have been mostly in South America. In the mountains, the shamans certainly use a cactus known as San Pedro cactus, and in the Amazon, they typically use a mixture of vine and leaves called ayahuasca. Is it a drug? I would say no. I mean, certainly if you stumbled on it, it would alter your perception. So if you had no idea what it was about, you might say, wow, I felt drugged last night. In reality, I think what you're stumbling upon, if you do it properly, is a medicine that opens up receptor sites within you, the human, that allows you to become aware of the essence of the core of things. And once you're aware of the core of things, whether it's the core of a human being or the core of a plant or a tree, you can begin to communicate with it. I mean, certainly no one's communicating with a voice, with vocal cords, with a flower. Hello, flower, how are you? It's just not going to work because they haven't got vocal cords. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have a life essence. And if we think scientifically about something like the wave theory of the universe, we're really talking about everything, every energy, and probably every anti-energy, matter and antimatter, is made of the same exact thing. It's simply a question of how closely those waves are pushed together to make them more solid. If the waves are pushed close together, it'll look very solid to us. If the waves are a little loosey-goosey, it'll look more like an ocean. If they're looser than that, it might look like air or gaseous substance. But if it's the same substance, then it's all got a same similar spirit. It's a question of accessing the spirit. So to me, I wouldn't call it a magic so much as a legitimate technology. Take this plant, mix this plant with this other plant, and open up your own system to an awareness, to an ability to change the parameters of how you see and feel things. An example of this would be, take a dog whistle. You don't hear the dog whistle. Cat doesn't hear the dog whistle. Birds don't hear the dog whistle. Dog sure hears the dog whistle. Now, what if you could open up and broaden your spectrum of hearing to be able to hear that dog whistle? You know it's there now. But if you could actually begin to hear it, you could begin to operate a little bit differently in the world we live within. And I think that's what shamans do, whether it's for healing or for other things that look like magic, visits to far-off places, being able to sometimes tell you something about the future or a future event that they've seen that really is something you couldn't have imagined that finally comes to pass. I agree with you, Lynn. I really think it's much more technology than magic, and it's certainly not a drug.
Well, and I think most of us would agree that, and you said most of your experience, of course, has been in South America where the rainforests are, and most of the medicines that we use that are effective have come out of the rainforest. I mean, it's a huge pharmaceutical factory is what it is. So it's not a big leap for me to understand that a plant or a combination of plants could produce a medicine that would activate parts of the brain, well, like serotonin uptake for depression. That makes sense to me. What I guess really shocks people is that it opens them up to new forms of knowledge, if you will, that is like, some people say it's like talking to God or talking to spirits, but I don't see that that's a huge leap. Again, I think this may be technology that we don't understand yet. Another part, before we get to the good stories, and I know you've got some, another one of the things to tie it to the scientists in the group tonight that I know that shaman use are things like sound. And I believe that the curanderos in South America use an instrument which is actually nothing but leaves called a shakapa. And I understand they sing these songs called icaros, but somehow people ride the waves of those things and they're able to journey. So I was wondering if you might talk about a little bit about how, the sound vibrations and energy might actually be, again, technology we don't quite understand yet.
I think, interestingly, around the world, shamans of every stripe use instruments, whether they're drums, rattles, or in South America in the Amazon, bundle leaf rattles, or leaf bundle rattles, shakapa. They use them at the same pace all around the world, people that don't know anybody. And the rate at which those rattles, those drums are drummed and shaken, and leaf bundles are shaken, seem to alter the brain waves themselves in humans. Studies have been done so that they make you more receptive. They quiet down your interior dialogue. Our interior dialogue, really, it mostly just anchors us here. We need it to be anchored down. We need to know, did we feed the cat? Did we feed the dog? Did we turn off the stove? If we didn't turn off the stove, we're going to burn the house down. But at some point, if our entire communication with ourselves is about, did we turn the stove off or not? Did I fix the carpet? Do I look nice? There's no room for anything else in our lives. The use of the rattles can take a person, whether they're South American, mestizo or indigenous person. They can take someone from Siberia. They can take, a monk from Nepal, and a certain vibrating chord will change the wavelength of a person's brain to where that interior dialogue is quickly quieted. And that person now is available to be able to think other thoughts rather than, did I leave the stove on? So I think the shakapa is important, and in South America they additionally sing while they use the shakapa, and they sing songs called icaros. Often you can't understand the words, or the words might include some tribal words, indigenous words, some Latin words introduced when the Catholics came there. The words aren't important. What's important is that the shaman will use a vibrating tone that will offset the tone of the rattle. And if you experience it, you realize, oh my goodness, they can really split me in half with this. I not only am quiet, I feel like I'm being cut right down the middle of my soul so that I'm available as a vessel to be filled with new thoughts.
Well, and again, to take it back to science, I know that we have done a lot of experiments with binaural beats that we investigated in the laboratory to see that has allowed people to do I guess the indigenous people would call them vision quests, but they also call it remote viewing, and there was a whole United States government program based on remote viewing, and that was reinforced by, again, sound. Well, Peter, one of the things that people ask, though, is, do I have to take the medicine? Is it something I constantly have to do? And I imagine some of our listeners tonight remember Carlos Castaneda and his books and The Little Smoke and all of his experiences with Don Juan. But at some point, even Carlos Castaneda said the magic, the medicine, the drugs, the whatever they wanted to call it back then, really wasn't necessary. In your experience, is that true?
I think that as humans, raised the way we are as Westerners, let's put it this way, raised as Westerners, most of us have our head full of junk from the time we're born, and or soon after. And I think we need a big clap on the head, a big dose of something, whether it's reality, whether it's poverty, whether it's, sitting out in the snow for 3 days, naked. We need a big dose of something to get our heads to, like, shut up, quiet down, listen to the rest of the universe. I think the medicine that Carlos Castaneda did, if he did it, I think the medicine they use in South America, whether it's San Pedro or whether it's ayahuasca, I think it's very vital for someone to do that. If they really want a shortcut to opening, if you want to do transcendental meditation for 20 years, I think you can. But I think if you would like a glimpse of what you're capable of, or what the world might really be like if you had your eyes fully open and your broadbands fully open, widened and opened, I think the medicine is a wonderful addition. And I really don't think you need to do it your whole life. What I think you need to do is, it's got to become a part of your life, which for one person might be one use. Or for somebody else it might be, like in my case, an occasional use, but regular use for 25 years. But to access those spaces, when I'm in the States 10 months a year, 8 months a year, I don't have that medicine. It's not legal up here, so I don't do it. Can I still access those spaces? Can I still maybe affect changes for some people if they need them? Can I still use the medicine? Yes. The medicine's here all the time. The medicine initially, the chemicals in the medicine opened up the receptor sites so that I would be available to the information. Now, at the same time, it's not like information that allows you to use it selfishly. It's not information that allows you to say, well, if you could see the future when you drink ayahuasca, can't you tell me what's going to happen in the stock market or who's going to win the game next week? I don't think the medicine works that way. I think the medicine makes itself available to you so that you can say, you might just get an inkling that, on a block and a half from now, I think I'm going to slow down. I don't know why. And you get up there and you slow down, and suddenly somebody rams his car right in front of you. And if you hadn't slowed down, you'd have gotten killed, or you'd have killed somebody. That, to me, is medicine work. And that's shamanism translated into 20th century, 21st century Western world. It's not the same as if we were down in the jungle. But no, I don't think people have to be in the jungle drinking medicine all the time, and they get no benefit if they don't.
Well, and that leads directly to, and folks, we're going to get to the stories of actual events here, and Peter's got some wonderful stories of interactions with shamans and himself and many of his clients and patients, if you will. But the one last thing I want to know about here is, do you think in our society, 21st century advanced modern America or Europe or anywhere for that matter, do you think there's a need for the shaman? Do you think there's a need for this magic or this technology that we don't understand yet? And I'm going to guess that you do. And if you do, if I've guessed right there, how might it make our lives richer and fuller and maybe even answer some of the problems we have?
I think, given the state most of us live in, which, as has been said, is a state of quiet desperation for most of our lives, yes, anything that would help enrich our lives, anything that would add joy, would add coloration, would add surprise, would add a little bit better sight, a little bit better hearing. And I don't mean just for the physical, but to be able to anticipate, to be able to see things, to be able to understand how you are part of a system. Your neighbor doesn't live there and you live here. You and your neighbor share a space. There might be a fence between you, but you still share a space. And so does the next neighbor, and so does the school. Move back from the birds, and look at it a little more like a bird's eye view, and you begin to see, oh, all of us neighbors live in the community. And then back further, all of the communities live in a city. All of the cities live in a state. All of the states live in a continent. All of the continent is part of the world. I think anything that would aid us in getting a glimpse of how we fit in the world and in the universe, not just in our own house, not just in our own living room. Anything that allows us to see and realize the connection we have with each other and with everything. Yeah, do I think it's important? I think it's more than important. I think it's vital. I think it's something very vital for us to get. And I think it's one of the things that our technology ignores. And I think we ignore it to our own peril. If we come to trust one element, my old teacher Julio would have said, that's when a shaman goes wrong. There are 4 magics, not one magic. If you trust one magic, you can become brilliant in that magic. But it's lopsided. Now, Julio's 4 magics were red, the blood that rushes through our bodies, rushes through the body of every warm-blooded creature in this planet. The green magic that runs through the verdansia, the trees, the rivers, the sea creatures. The white magic that illuminates the universe. The black magic that holds everything together in the molten center of things. Julio said you need to practice all of those. Our technology is fantastic. I don't even know what color magic he would apply to our technology, and it is fantastic. But I do think it allows us to become dependent on one set of eyes, rather than opening us up to being dependent on a whole, as if we had 1,000 pairs of eyes and could see the world at the same time 1,000 different ways. Your needs, his needs, her needs, our needs, the community's needs. And if you begin to operate that way, sure, I think it's very vital.
Well, I obviously would agree with you. First, I want to remind folks that we're visiting with Peter Gorman tonight, and we're talking about shamanism, technology that we don't understand yet. And the next part of this program, we're going to talk about some stories that illustrate what we're trying to talk about here. And Peter's daughter is with us tonight, and Peter's daughter has been with him in the jungle and has observed a number of these things. And before this program's over, we're probably going to use her to validate and verify some of the stories her dad's telling here. I also want to remind folks we are available for questions. The number to call in is 888-919-2355. And Peter, the last thing I want to talk about before we go into some of the actual facts of the matter. People talk about shamanism, and they say the only way you can be a shaman is you have to be born to it. You have to be born in some indigenous society, and you have to be abandoned as a child, and you have to, suffer in some way like that. That I guess the question is, in your experience, Carlos Castaneda talked about lineages, and people talk about wanting to be a shaman and, a curandero or whatever. If someone were interested in, God help them, on taking this path from your perspective, as one who I know has traveled this path, could you self-select into this? Do the gods select you into this? What, how do you get?
This one is not going to be real easy. First, I'm not a shaman, despite what Mr. Chilson says. Am I on the path? Have I been introduced? Absolutely. Did I mean to be introduced? No. Because for me, the medicine, when I was introduced to it, was meant to help me access an ability to hike into deep jungle without getting bitten by snakes. Because my teacher in jungle survival thought if you drink the ayahuasca, you'll anticipate where the snakes will be. Therefore, you won't get bitten, and I won't have to carry your stinking body over 8 hills back into the city. He certainly believed that. And but if the question is, can you self-select? I think, yes, you can. Number one. Would it be a lot of work? Yes. Just pretend you want to be a drummer in a rock band. Can you self-select? Yes. Do some people have better natural rhythms than others? Yeah. Are some people better mechanics? Are some people better computer analysis? Sure. So if you self-select and you pick the wrong thing, it's going to be a real difficult road for you. If you self-select and it's something that you have an aptitude for, in other words, if you're able, among other things, if you're able to completely quiet yourself, if you're able to get away, if you're able to spend long times alone, if you don't mind, particularly in South America, if you don't mind being bitten by 12 trillion mosquitoes and getting butt fly infestation,